Hi, everyone. My name is George Elliott Clarke, and it's my great pleasure to read a small portion from this brand new scholarly but interesting and exciting and exuberant publication dealing with Newfoundland-born poet E.J. Pratt and his attempts to write national epic poetry. Attempts that were very worthy, but then also flawed, mainly because of his inability to negotiate various concerns around race and language and ethnicity. And so what are otherwise very fine poems are marred by his errors around trying to accommodate what we now call diversity. So I'm critical, but also very appreciative of Pratt. So here I go. I'm going to be reading a little bit of my critique of his great epic poem from 1953, Towards the Last Spike, which deals with the creation of the national railway system across the West, essentially through the various mountain ranges between Alberta and the BC Pacific coast in the 1880s. So here we go. Truly, Pratt seems uninterested in the vagaries of Chinese proletarians, save for the poem's mention of 200 Chinese tugging at shore ropes to assist a ship in fording a cataract, and soon this number is condensed into the racist epithet of the coolie. Pratt's Orientalism excretes, as it were, a discrete form of yellow peril. Pratt's remedy for this racial panic is to bleach Chinese from the poem, just as they are airbrushed, so to speak, from the historic photo of the last spike being driven. Pratt declares towards a verse panorama of the struggle to build the first Canadian railway from the time of the proposed terms of union with British Columbia, 1870, to the hammering of the last spike in the Eagle Pass in 1885. But his heroes ain't laborers anyway, but robber baron, capitalist bankers, Victorian imperialist politicians, and essentially white Anglo-Saxon Protestants with a bias in favor of the Scottish variety. If the English are disappeared from his earlier attempt at epic, Brebeuf and his brethren from 1940, as active competitors with the French in colonizing the Americas and converting or killing indigenous peoples, Pratt omits not only the Chinese but also French Canadians from Towards the Last Spike, because this poem is meant to be a celebration of muscular Protestantism, tacit white British supremacy, and capitalist daring-do, with all the laurels granted Europeans and the chief heroism allotted Scots. Pratt himself comments that the poem begins to describe praiseworthy peoples and personalities by demonstrating the effect of oatmeal on the Scotch blood and spirit of enterprise. To accomplish this passage, Pratt reports that he consults Scotchmen themselves, physiologists and dietitians, and checks out the data, supporting the idea that their greatness in helping to bring about the construction of the railway depended to a certain extent on their consumption of oatmeal, and that this had a very positive effect on the Scotch blood, brawn, and brain, says Pratt. But we can't leave out Scotch either. And so Pratt also asked a number of Scotchmen about the effects of Scotch in producing the Scottish ability to get the railway constructed. And he is assured by various doctors and others that yes, along with oatmeal, alcohol is extremely important. Scotch was very important. And so one might want to think that it might be necessary to get anything done. It might be necessary to have a cocktail of oatmeal and Scotch whiskey, of course. So I'm going to end up here with another mention about the disappearance of China and Chinese from the poem, given the fact that Chinese constructed the railway, for crying out loud. So Pratt's national poem project again falls victim to a racial blindness, It is fascinating that he publishes Towards the Last Spike, just as the People's Republic of China, founded in 1949, was commencing its drive toward awesome industrialization, a process that would accord the PRC the world's largest economy by the 2020s. Far from being forgettable laborers, as they are in Pratt's poem, the Chinese are already the world-class exemplars of Scottish virtues, of the spirit of enterprise, and being outstandingly economical. Apparently, Pratt lionized and demonized the wrong groups of players and actors in Towards, and I will finish up by taking 30 to 60 seconds to recite this small portion of poetry, just to demonstrate it's very good poetry, actually. It's a description of the Canadian Shield in Towards the Last Spike. Here it is. On the North Shore, a reptile lay asleep, a hybrid that the myths might have conceived, but not delivered, as progenitor of crawling, gliding things upon the earth. She lay snug in the folds of a huge boa whose tail had covered Labrador and swished Atlantic tides, whose body coiled itself around the Hudson Bay, then curled up north through Manitoba and Saskatchewan to Great Slave Lake. In continental reach, the neck went past the Great Bear Lake until its head was hidden in the Arctic seas. Thank you so much for your interest in Pratt and in this scholarly and respectful and exciting and colorful, pun intended, approach to the great national poet and his national epics.